Hey, what's happening everyone? Jinsula here with a brand new Pokemon GO discussion video, and today I wanted to discuss the topic of wild spawns. I really do not like how Niantic has been handling wild spawns for the past couple of years, and I really do think we need to discuss this so that some positive changes can happen, because when it comes to the general daily Pokemon GO play, it can get quite redundant and very repetitive, and the reason for that, in my opinion, is specifically because of how Niantic is handling wild spawns. As of right now, the way that they are doing it is that every season they have a set number of different Pokemon that they have available in the wild, and you're not going to find other Pokemon unless you live in a different region like the southern or northern hemisphere, and you have to wait till the next season in order to see those specific Pokemon. Considering that there's hundreds of Pokemon that are now released into Pokemon GO, you would think that there would be a lot more diversity and a lot more variety when you go out and play Pokemon GO, but that is just simply not the case. When you go out and play, you're going to see the exact same Pokemon pretty much everywhere, and the only time you see a little bit of a difference is when there is an in-game event. And that is incredibly boring. Let's be real here. The kind of buzz and excitement that you used to feel when Pokemon GO was first released is just simply not there anymore. Sure, we have hundreds of Pokemon that are now available in the game, and the game is completely different from how it was upon launch. But in my opinion, I think there's a lot of untapped potential here for some exciting gameplay. And the reason for that is because of how Niantic is handling wild spawns right now with this seasonal rotation system. I just think this system needs to go, just simply put. I do not like how Niantic has it set up where only a handful of Pokemon are going to be available. They really should have it where every single Pokemon that has been released up until this point, minus let's say like themed Pokemon and legendaries and different things like that, you should be able to catch any Pokemon that is currently available. I think that is the best way to go. One of the things that I've always wanted and kind of imagined for Pokemon GO for the past couple of years is having a system where you could go out and you would come across different Pokemon depending on your region. And I think this system would work a lot better. Let's say you're living in a metropolitan area, you would encounter a lot of Pokemon that you would only see in like major cities. And then if you go out to the rural areas, you'll see a whole bunch of different Pokemon that you wouldn't see in the city location. So that creates a lot of diverse gameplay, and it requires you to travel and explore. That's something that I feel would work really well with Pokemon GO. They already have a system set up right now where they could tap into this, and I'm specifically talking about the biome system. With the biome system, you could have very different Pokemon in different areas depending on the biome, and I think it could work out really well. But as of right now, it just still feels like you're encountering the same Pokemon regardless of what biome you are in. So that is a major fail for this biome system. Like if I go to a major city, I'm essentially going to see most of the same Pokemon that I would see in a rural area or a grassy area or a park area. And I just think that's very much a missed opportunity. When it comes to Pokemon GO's gameplay, it's very simple. Players want to see a lot of variety, they want to have a lot of unique and exciting experiences, and in order for them to get that, they need to come across super rare Pokemon. And yes, there are going to be occasions where you will come across a Pokemon that you just do not see. Like one notable example is that a couple of days ago, I was out and about grinding and I came across a bunch of Frigobacks, but also a Salamence. That was quite exciting. But really, it just feels like every single day when I open up Pokemon GO, it's the exact same Pokemon every single time. And if I do not need the candies or the Stardust from any of these Pokemon, then I just simply do not feel compelled to go out and play. This is what needs to change. I think what Niantic needs to do is open up the game to have every single Pokemon that has been released in Pokemon GO catchable. And like I suggested, have certain Pokemon be specific to certain regions, so you have to do a little bit of traveling and exploring to fill up your Pokedex. I think this is a much better way to go about it, rather than having the current system of seasonal rotations. It's just incredibly boring. Now, this also brings into question the idea of regional Pokemon, like for example Kangaskhan, Tropius, all of these Pokemon that players have been wanting. Yeah, you could retain a lot of their rarity by just having them in their respective regions. You could keep that system in place. But I really do think that there's a lot of things that Pokemon GO used to enjoy that they just simply do not anymore. And a big part of that is the idea of coming across rare Pokemon and unique Pokemon. There was a time back in the day where if you were to come across a Lapras, for example, it was such an event. Like, You would basically be out and about exploring, and then suddenly, boom, there's a Lapras on the map, and you would just be like, holy cow, I've never seen this Pokemon before. And I think it's just created a lot of exciting moments. And sure, back in the day, we did have big problems with spawns, like, we would come across so many Pidgeys and Rattatas, and then very occasionally you might come across a starter Pokemon, and that was somewhat exciting. But in reality, I feel like Niantic could handle this better. I'm not necessarily saying they should just have it so every single Pokemon is suddenly available. They just need to come up with something that will allow you to be able to catch a bunch of Pokemon that you just simply do not see. And they need to explore different avenues for how they can create those experiences. But right now, with the seasonal rotation system, it's just not really there. You're just basically going about playing the game as usual, and there's really not much change to it. Every single day I feel like I'm having the same experiences, and that's incredibly boring. Now, there are a couple of features that are coming up in the future that I do think could shake things up, like with, of course, Dynamax Pokemon. I think what they're trying to do with that is going to be very interesting, but I think they could do a lot more. Like, in my opinion, I think it would be really cool if there was certain effects and different things with spawns that could happen if you were to complete, let's say, Dynamax raids. Maybe you defeat a certain Dynamax Pokemon, and then a bunch of Pokemon of that type would suddenly start spawning within a big radius around that gym. Or maybe you could do the same thing with raid battles. Like if you defeat a 5-star raid, then you're going to see different spawns around you. They already have kind of like the backbones of a system like this in place. And we know this because of how they handle the extended hour system with community days. When you defeat a 4-star raid, you suddenly see a whole bunch of the community day spawns around that gym. They could do something similar with Dynamax raids and Mega Evolution raids and even 3-star and 5-star raids. Like, there's so many things that they could do to make the game feel a little bit more exciting and for them to create more unique experiences on the daily. And then on top of that, they could do a lot more with stuff like party play and with routes. Like if you're engaging in a route, like you're walking a route, you should be able to see a bunch of different spawns. I know they currently have a system like that, but it just doesn't feel that different. Like if I'm walking a route, for example, I don't feel like the spawns are that much different as if I was not walking that route. It just doesn't feel that unique. And I think this is something that Niantic definitely needs to look into. And another example is, of course, party play. If you're doing party play with another player, then both of you should be able to encounter certain Pokemon that you typically would not encounter unless you're engaged in party play. I think right now the only thing that you can get is Tandemaus, but I think they should go even further. Like, if you're doing party play, maybe you can come across all of the partner Pokemon that you typically see, like let's say Plusle and Minoon, all the Pokemon that kind of combine together to form another Pokemon whenever they evolve, like Diglett, Magnemite, all of those kind of Pokemon. There's just so many things that they could do, and they could get very creative with it, but I just don't see them doing that right now, and Pokemon Go is certainly hurting because of it. So yeah, in my opinion, I think there needs to be a lot of work when it comes to wild spawns, and yeah, I totally recognize that there's going to be detractors out there. There's going to be people who are going to disagree with me on this, and that's totally okay. There's some people who prefer the seasonal rotation system, mainly because they want to focus in on certain Pokemon for collecting candies and XL candy, and I totally recognize that. But in my opinion, I think there needs to be a lot more variety. I think the game would definitely benefit from that. And because Niantic is not giving us that kind of variety, it does feel very boring and repetitive every single day. At least in my opinion, that has been my daily Pokemon Go experience for the past 2 years. So yeah, I really hope there are some positive changes. I think this is a discussion that we need to keep on going, and hopefully Niantic is paying attention, because for the upcoming seasons, I'm just not really finding myself getting excited. Like, yeah, there's going to be different Pokemon that we're going to be seeing, and there's definitely going to be some shakeups in the meta. But in my opinion, I feel like Niantic could do more, and I really hope they consider doing it. So yeah, in any case, that's going to be it for this discussion video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What do you think about how wild spawns are handled in Pokemon Go right now? Do you think there's some positive changes that Niantic needs to make? I would like to know what those suggestions are in the comments. And yeah, let's have a great discussion. And thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. If you found it to be insightful and informative, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if it's your first time here. And don't forget that little bell so you can stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. And I want to give a shout out to all of my patrons on Patreon. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support the Jinsula channel, the absolute best way you could do so is, of course, joining my Patreon. For all of my patrons, they get a permanent spot on my in-game Pokemon Go friends list. So when it comes to stuff like remote raids and the friendship system, if you want to play Pokemon Go with me, then make sure you go and check out my Patreon. And if you want to support my channel in a very different way, you can do so by following me on social media. My handle is @Jinsula. I'm on the platforms that you see on screen. Make sure you go over there and give me a follow. And with that said, that's going to be it for this video. I'm Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.
Jinsula